This is a special presentation of Alabama News Network. The Alabama Crimson Tide hopes to play for a national championship, but the road to the title game must go through Atlanta, where the Florida Gators want to take a bite out of the Tide's championship dreams. Presented by your local Ford dealers, ASC Credit Union, Alpha Insurance, Jack Ingram Motors, Zaxby's, and Stokes Chevrolet. This is the road to the SEC Championship.
Hello and welcome to the Road to the SEC Championship, the pregame show that'll give you all the things you need to know about Alabama versus Florida. I'm Mo Carter along with sports analyst John Longshore. And John, the first thing I think about is that football season is almost in the books.
Well, it almost is, Mo, but we got a big game today in Atlanta. Hard to believe these two teams faced off in the very first SEC Championship game back in 1992 at Birmingham's Legion Field. And here they are again in 2015 playing for the SEC crown.
I also heard that was a very cold night.
Oh, it was freezing.
All right, everyone, let's tell you what's coming up on tap today for this show. First of all, we'll take a look at the Alabama Crimson Tide and how they got here. We'll also take a look at the Florida Gators, the Eastern Division champs. Then we'll take an inside look at Coach Nick Saban against Jim McElwain. There's a coaching carousel in the SEC. We'll have a postseason outlook, and at the end of the show, we've got John's predictions. But as we get ready for the big SEC matchup, let's take a look at how Alabama got into this prime position. Ben Bowden has more on Alabama's road to the SEC Championship.
Yeah, Mo, Alabama came into this season with a lot of expectations as usual, and despite a couple of bumps in the road early on, they found themselves in Atlanta with the chance to win and get in the college football playoff.
The Alabama Crimson Tide came into the 2015 season with high expectations as usual, ranked in the top 10. But they went into the season opener against Wisconsin with a quarterback battle still in progress. Jake Coker got the start and threw for 213 yards and a touchdown. But it was apparent early that Derrick Henry would lead the offense with 147 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Tide beat the Badgers 35-17. Henry scored 3 more touchdowns as Alabama rolled past Middle Tennessee State. Then the Ole Miss Rebels came to town. Alabama played for revenge of the previous year's loss, but the high emotions led to mistakes. Ole Miss getting 24 points off 5 Alabama turnovers, leaving the Crimson Tide with an early 43-37 loss. Alabama regrouped the next week as Coker threw for 3 touchdowns to cruise past ULM 34-0. The Tide hit the road on a trip to Athens to face the 10th-ranked Bulldogs. It was a coming-out party for Alabama's defense and special teams as a total team effort and 148 yards from Henry led to a 38-10 victory on a rainy day in Georgia. Back at home, the Arkansas Razorbacks came in looking to get a win in Tuscaloosa, but the Alabama defense held strong, and big plays from freshman Calvin Ridley led to a 13-point victory as Alabama re-entered the top 10. Alabama went back on the road to College Station and the 12th man. The Aggies were undefeated and ranked in the top 10. The Alabama defense forced 4 turnovers against the potent Texas A&M offense, and Derrick Henry put the team on his back with 236 yards and 2 touchdowns, the Tide dominating the Aggies 41-23. It was time for the third Saturday in October and the Tennessee Volunteers. Alabama was down late in the fourth quarter when Jake Coker led his team down the field on a game-winning drive, topped off by a 14-yard touchdown run by Derrick Henry, the Crimson Tide squeaking by the Volunteers 19-14. After a much-needed bye week, Alabama hosted the number 2 ranked LSU Tigers with a potential college football playoff spot on the line. The Alabama defense came prepared to stop Leonard Fournette, while the formula of feeding Derrick Henry the ball was too much for the Bayou Bengals. Alabama dominated in the big game, winning 30-16, and Henry becoming the Heisman leader with 210 yards and 3 touchdowns. The following week had a little more cowbell as the Tide had to move on from the LSU win and focus on Mississippi State. And even on the road, the constant of the Alabama defense, considered one of the best in the nation, was too much for Dak Prescott, holding the Bulldogs to just 6 points. Henry had over 200 yards and 2 more touchdowns, winning 31-6. And after an easy win over Charleston Southern, the Crimson Tide went into the Iron Bowl, facing an Auburn team whose season didn't go quite as expected, but were ready to upset their biggest rival. The game looked like it could be a scare after an Auburn tipped touchdown to make it a 1-score game. but Derrick Henry sealed the deal with a late touchdown for his 46th carry for 271 total yards, sending the Crimson Tide to Atlanta.
And we'll have to see if Derrick Henry and that defensive front seven can lead the Crimson Tide to a win and maybe even eventually a trip to Glendale if they keep winning for a national championship.
Hey, thank you so much, Ben. Now 14 teams have their eyes on the prize for an SEC title, and as we mentioned, 2 of those will have that chance to play on today, and one of the favorites is Alabama. The Crimson Tide, they're 11-1 on the season, as you just saw with the season recap. Since that early season loss to Ole Miss, the Tide football team has not missed a beat. Alabama's rode the back of Derrick Henry offensively and shut down opposing offenses with its stingy defense. Now the SEC title game is the last regular season goal left for Alabama.
Great opportunity for our team to play in the SEC championship game. This is something that we still feel is very, very important and something that's a significant accomplishment because of the quality of our league and winning our division and having an opportunity to play against a really good Florida team.
You know, just the history behind them playing the SEC championship just makes it a lot more fun and a lot more bigger of a game. So we're excited to play in it. Like I said, you got prepared for these guys. They do a great job of what they do. So I make sure we locked in so we're ready for Saturday.
So, John, considering the fact that Alabama has been there and done that, what's their approach going into today's championship game?
Yeah, I think this prior week there have been a lot of distractions, Mo. There's no doubt about it with coaching news and, of course, with Kirby Smart heading to Georgia later on this year. But they know winning the SEC championship is a huge milestone for any school in the conference, even for Alabama that's won so many. And you win today, Mo, you are in the playoffs. You're going to be one of the 4 select teams that has a shot to play for the national championship. Now, Alabama's a huge favorite in this game, the biggest favorite ever in SEC championship game history at 17.5 points. They can't worry about that because I can promise you Jim McElwain is going to give Alabama all they want today.
Now, Alabama, they'll have to do some special things today. And, John, you want to go ahead and tell us about your keys to the game for the Bama?
Yeah, let's talk about these, Mo. I think Alabama needs to get ahead early. If they can jump up on Florida by 14 in the first quarter, that's going to make things very difficult for the Gators. Now, we know Derrick Henry is going to run the ball a lot today, but they've also got to mix the pass in. Hey, O.J. Howard, hadn't seen you in a while. Maybe the tight end's getting involved a little bit.
Local native.
Yes, sir, and they've got to wear out this overworked Florida defense. You talking about a defense that's worked overtime. Man, they need to get paid double time and a half. Florida's been playing so much defense of late. And, Mo, you just touched on it. They cannot look ahead. There's a big prize down the railroad track, but today they don't want to get run over by that Florida Gator train.
Now we're just getting started with the road to the SEC Football Championship. When we return, we'll head east and check in with the Florida Gators, the team that is challenging Alabama for the SEC crown. Coach McElwain and the Gators are coming up next.
As Matthews goes back and throws, intercepted by Langham. He's on his way. Touchdown, Alabama.
In the first SEC championship, Antonio Langham intercepts Shane Matthews and wins the ball game for Alabama on a very cold night. That is known as the play that changed college football forever. So, John, when it comes to memories of the SEC championship, that's your first one. What do you remember most about that game besides that interception?
I'm thinking the Georgia Dome can't get built quick enough because it was so cold that night in Birmingham's Legion Field. But it was a back-and-forth game all night, and Antonio Langham broke it open right there. Florida had gotten the ball back late in the fourth quarter, trying to go on a winning drive, and Antonio Langham nailed it shut for Alabama.
All right, now moving on to this year. During the preseason, the Florida Gators, they were not a favorite to make it to the SEC title game, but under first-year head coach Jim McElwain, the Gators have exceeded expectations. Now, the Gators, they started their season off strong. They crushed Ole Miss, the only team to beat Alabama this season, but then they were 6-0 and they were ranked 8th. Headed to Baton Rouge to take on 6th-ranked LSU, but lost by a touchdown. But then the Gators had a late-season breakdown, an overtime win over Florida Atlantic, and they were crushed by Florida State last week. But despite that collapse, Jim McElwain is proud of his team for making such a big turnaround.
It's the way it should be. It's Florida and Alabama in Atlanta for the SEC championship. And I am so proud of our players and all the people in our organization that have committed to a higher standard and a higher level of expectation.
All right, John, so what are your thoughts about this 2015 Gators team?
Well, the defense, as I mentioned earlier, has really played well and gotten Florida out of some holes. But offensively, they've kind of hiccuped of late. And, of course, their quarterback, Treon Harris, has had some difficulty in staying upright. Sacked 22 times in the last 6 games, Mo. And you got to know this Alabama defense is focusing in on that, going to put as much pressure on Harris as they possibly can. In Florida, they go to overtime against Florida Atlantic a couple of weeks ago. They get beat by Florida State last week. They had a couple of other games that were close, particularly against some non-conference opposition that they had no business having those games be as close as they were. So the Gators, even though they've got a really good record, it's been a good year under Jim McElwain in year 1, they've dodged some bullets this year as well.
Now, if Florida wants to pull the upset today against Alabama, what are they going to have to do? Yeah,
let's look at some keys here. Now, they've got to protect. Quarterback Treon Harris, as just mentioned, sacked 22 times in the last 6 games. Got to keep him upright. Got to get the defense off the field, Mo. This has been an overworked Florida defense of late because the offense just hasn't been able to get anything going. And Florida needs to be +3 in turnover margin. They've got to get the ball back from Alabama. And they need to score touchdowns via the defense and the special teams because I just don't believe the offense is going to be able to produce enough points for Florida to win today.
Now, the battle of the head coaches will be a hot topic today because Coach Jim McElwain is a Nick Saban prodigy. Yes, McElwain was on the staff when the Tide won it all back in 2009, and today McElwain is back in Atlanta trying to win his first SEC football championship. But on the opposing sidelines is his former mentor looking to lock up his 6th SEC title. Saban has never lost a game to a former assistant coach, and Coach Saban and McElwain, they've got a lot of respect for each other.
I've always thought Mac was a really, really good coach, really good guy, well liked by the players, very good teacher, very innovative in terms of creating issues for the defensive team, but doing it in a way where it doesn't create problems for his own players.
It's all an opportunity to learn, and he gave me that opportunity. And guy's really good now. And, you know, sometimes the public perception does not do any justice as to what a good guy he is.
John, this is a true example of the student versus the teacher. Yep. So what do you think about the matchup of Saban versus McElwain?
You know, I think a lot of people have forgotten, Mo, that McElwain brought his Colorado State team into Tuscaloosa a couple of years ago. So Saban and McElwain have faced off prior to this game today, but certainly it wasn't the importance of what today's game has at stake. The winner is the SEC champion.
All right, now CBS 8 is your home for the 2015 SEC Football Championship. Of course, right now you're watching the road to the SEC Championship. Then later today at 3 p.m., it's Alabama versus Florida, and the winner claims the SEC football title for 2015. Check that game out live right here on CBS 8 at 3 p.m. Now, there's been a lot of turnover in the SEC this year with their coaches. Several new faces will be in new places next season. When we come back, we'll take a look at the coaching carousel in the SEC. That's next.
Werfel's got a guy. It's Green. He's just a burner, and it's a touchdown for Florida.
In 1996, Danny Werfel threw for 400 yards and scored 6 touchdowns in a 45-30 rout against the Alabama Crimson Tide. That would be the second to last game for Gene Stallings, and that was a big year for the Florida Gators, John.
Yeah, it was a huge year for the Florida Gators, and also in that game there was a lot of talk about why Gene Stallings didn't go for 2 in that game. Might have put Alabama in a better opportunity or a better place to maybe win that game.
Exactly. Florida went on to win a national championship by crushing Bobby Bowden and the Florida State Seminoles in the Superdome later that year. Now look, it's been a wild week leading up into the SEC championship game for Alabama. While the Tide are preparing for Florida, they've dealt with outside distractions like coaching carousels. Of course, by now you've heard about the news concerning Kirby Smart and Georgia. Smart played at Georgia in the 1990s and was high on the Dogs list from the beginning. He cannot officially move forward with anything Georgia related until after the SEC title game. So, John, what do you think about Georgia's hire of Kirby Smart?
Well, I think it's a great one. I like Kirby Smart a lot, Mo, and I think Georgia's got a great football coach. He's been tutored by the best in Nick Saban, have been a part of Nick Saban's squads for over 15 years, and I think he's ready to move on back to his alma mater, a player at Georgia, and I think the Dogs have done a great job. Now, there'll be some learning, no doubt, being a head coach from a coordinator, but I think being under Saban for as long as he has been, that's a huge asset.
Now, speaking of Coach Saban, Wednesday night, all he wanted to do was talk about the SEC title game, but someone kept asking him about Kirby Smart's future. So here was his response.
Don't ask me any more questions about that, because that's all I have to say about it. I can't say it. I don't have anything else to say about it. So don't ask. There is no more. I know you would like to some kind of way extract something out of this bottle. That's not there. It's not there. You all speculate and create things, and then you want people to respond to it. Get this bottle to respond to it, because I don't know anything more than that. I told you everything I know. So you can ask the bottle, but don't ask me.
So no questions were asked to the bottle from far as I know.
Somebody should have raised their hand and said, Coach, I've got a question for the bottle.
It would have been probably fantastic. He would have probably walked off the stage right after that. Now let's move over to CanesInsight.com. They were the first ones to report that Mark Richt will be heading to South Beach to be the new coach of the Miami Hurricanes. He will replace Al Golden, who was fired in October. Can Miami become the U again under Mark Richt?
You know, I don't know if they can become the U again under Richt, because it was a totally different circumstance. They were independent, playing anybody on TV all the time before everybody was on TV. Now they're in a conference. But right now, Mark Richt can come back and bring some stability to this program. A former Hurricane player going back home, and I think he can get this ship headed in the right direction. But, Mo, I'm not sure the U's ever going to be the U like they used to be.
All right, now coming up next, we'll take a look at the college football playoffs and let you know who has the best shot to make the Final Four. That's coming up next.
Water bugs his way back to the near side, trying to get the corner. He's got it. Freddie Mills all the way. He's going to go. This will be an Alabama touchdown.
In 1999, Freddie Mills took the direct snap, reversed the field, and scored a 77-yard touchdown. His big play, along with the play of Sean Alexander, propelled Alabama to a 34-7 win in 1999. Alabama beat Florida twice that season. Now, the final college football rankings will be released tomorrow afternoon, and we'll find out which teams will play in the New Year's Six in a few weeks. Now, the top 5 teams remain unchanged, as you see, between Clemson all the way down to Michigan State. And following that, you got Ohio State, Stanford, Notre Dame, Florida State, and North Carolina. John, let's focus on these top teams.
Yep. Well, I think if Iowa wins.
Wait, let's go with Clemson first.
Yeah, well, if Clemson, I think they've got the most difficult game of the day today. I think North Carolina could pull the upset and beat Clemson. Dabo's team better watch out.
All right, Alabama, they win, they're in?
Y'all, no doubt. They win, they're in.
All right, moving on to Oklahoma. Their season is done.
Yep, but the Big Ten championship game is tonight. Mo, will the committee move a champion, which they say has a lot of weight, ahead of Oklahoma to third, putting the Sooners to fourth? If that happens, Alabama would play the Big Ten champion in round 1. Clemson, if they win, would play Oklahoma in round 1.
Now, here's the interesting one for you. This is like a quarterfinal game. The winner of Iowa versus Michigan State, do they make the playoff?
Well, I think they do. I think you've got to have the Big Ten champion in there. And like I said, you are the champion. Will they catapult Oklahoma? I think that's going to be interesting to watch for on Sunday.
All right, everyone, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. When we return, we'll have one more SEC championship moment. Then we'll get John's prediction for today's SEC football championship. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
Got a man. Intercepted. Javier Arenas in the end zone.
Javier Arenas making one of the many defensive plays that shut down Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators in the matchup of 1 versus 2 in 2009. And, of course, this is probably where you could say the Nick Saban Alabama dynasty began.
Oh, there's no doubt, Mo. Of course, you saw Tim Tebow there in tears after that game, and Alabama went on to win the national title in Pasadena against Texas that year. It was an incredible SEC championship game.
All right, now we're in the final stretch of the show, and that means it's now time for John Longshore's prediction. So, John, here's the floor for you. Give us some final breakdowns with Alabama and Florida.
Well, Alabama offensively, it's all around Derrick Henry and him running the football, but I think Jay Coker has really matured and done really well. I think the passing game is going to get more involved today as well in Atlanta. Alabama's defense, what can you say, just been dominating. Of course, Florida, on the other hand, their defense has been on the field a lot. They've been kind of worn out, and their offense has just not been able to produce a lot of points. And saying all that, Mo, I think Alabama wins the game today, 31-13. Alabama is your SEC champion, and they move on to the semifinals of the college football playoff.
All right, there it is. John Longshore saying Alabama will go ahead and win 31-13. Now you get a chance to watch Alabama versus Florida today at 3 p.m. and CBS 8 is your home for SEC football with the SEC Championship. As John mentioned, an Alabama win will definitely propel them into the college football playoff. If Florida wins,
yeah, no doubt. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what these other games play out today, Mo, to see who Alabama could be playing in this game. As I mentioned, could it be a Big Ten team or could it be Oklahoma, a rematch of the Sugar Bowl a couple of years ago?
Let's just take it one step at a time and worry about the SEC Championship, which happens in only a matter of hours. Now, coming up next, we'll have some basketball here on CBS 8. But then after that, our friend Adam Zucker will take everything over from Atlanta for the SEC Championship. Thank you for watching The Road to the SEC Championship here on CBS 8. For John Longshore, I'm Mo Carter. Have yourself a great day and enjoy the game.